And, if we wanted to completely protect the players, we might have to ban or change contact sports into games that we don't actually recognise anymore. And it seems excessive, and it would mean that we have to ban, non-contact but risky sports like horse riding, for instance, that, we've also unfortunately seen some severe injuries, and it's a sport that's loved in the UK and in Ireland. Cycling, Paul Kimmage's sport, there have been people unfortunately killed, and even sports like skateboarding. But it could flow into dangerous occupations as well, where people can get injured and killed. In your sense, Sam, where does common sense stop and nannying starts, and where is that balance? I understand, and I think everybody would agree with you, that nobody should die on the sports field, and people would go further that they don't want people to get injured or have long-term health effects, but it's happening. But where is the balance in those two arguments for you?
I mean, so just to be really clear, I've never called for a ban on contact sport. I have real issues with boxing because the objective is to inflict a brain injury on the opponent. So I hold my hand up. I really, really struggle to watch boxing now. And indeed, things like cage fighting, I don't consider that a proper sport personally, although that will no doubt stir a hornet's nest, but it's just not a sport I enjoy. I don't. Having said that, when we're coming back to the sport I understand better, which is rugby, to me, it was all about informed choice and tolerable risk and responding to a changed risk. So, as I say, I grew up playing rugby. I had 3 shoulder reconstructions. I accepted the risk when I ran onto the field. I embraced the risk. I wanted that risk. But my point in rugby was that the risk profile was changing radically as the game went professional, and it was about, and this piece of work that I'm now fully committed to is about responding to that risk and convincing people that that risk is higher. People are seeing it anyway. It's so obvious when they watch professional rugby now. You can't continue to deny that the game is very, very different to 30 years ago. We're seeing the consequences, sadly, and gradually over time, the change is happening, and I don't think the professional game as we see it at the moment is a tolerable risk. But having said that, if we're honest with the athletes involved about the longer term effects, and they essentially still sign up to it, then that's their choice, and I respect that. I have enormous respect for anybody who takes a rugby field, especially a professional rugby field. But I think I come back to this idea about having a more honest conversation about the risks. Now we're seeing things like brain scans being offered to professional players. Much more openness. There's definitely a discussion about whether those brain scans are the right types of brain scans, but the conversations are happening about long-term risk, which were just flatly denied for a long time. There is no proven causal link between repetitive head injuries and CTE. Was something I heard time after time from top people in sport, medical people. One of whom I must say led the Concussion in Sport group, Professor Paul McCrory, who's now, I write about him in the book, has been absolutely exposed as a plagiarist, and the work he was doing was not fit for purpose, but it was dominating the conversation, and in many ways it continues to dominate the conversation. So it's about having an honest conversation. I fully accept that all contact sports come with risk. It's part of the reason people want to play them. It's part of the reason I wanted to play them. But I want to have, and I think the athletes deserve, an honest conversation, and repeatedly reminding that if you repeatedly expose your brain to trauma, it is going to, over time, more likely than not, cause some issues further down the track. And even that is now widely accepted, which, certainly 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't.